Hi, my name's Sarah Donaldson. I'm the Area Coordinator for the Wairarapa Rural Support Trust. Okay, so we're thinking about how we can prepare for rural disasters and how communities and people can better prepare ahead of that time. So I think we want to think about this on two levels. One is how we can personally prepare, and the other is, as a community, how we can prepare. Some of the things we're really aware of and we've learnt from the previous cyclone events is communication, power and water systems are pretty important priorities, and something that often is going to be compromised possibly for even 2 weeks. Thinking about how you can better prepare should you lose those things. So it's thinking about, have you got the means to have a generator or solar power options, battery options. We're thinking about our communication systems, so on farm, whether we've got satellite options, whether we've got radio phones, RT systems, and also thinking about, from a communication point of view, like things like we learnt that WhatsApp groups, chat groups use the lowest range of frequency, so we might not be able to talk through them, but we might be able to text when we can't use other means, when the cell phone towers, etc. might go down. So just thinking about your backup options. Likewise, if the power goes out, most rural properties use pumps which require power. If you want to have ongoing water supply from a hygiene point of view, then you may need to think about generators to be able to have those functions. Heard a great tip from someone who'd been through a couple of big events, and they said as soon as they hear the warnings now, they fill up their bath ahead of time. So they've just got, more water in the house. Some of those little water tanks, even as a backup one, are pretty good. You can get them through our local councils now pretty cheaply. So those are some practical kind of starters for 10. And just from a family point of view, it's having those, what would we do if, what's our emergency kind of plan, but also for stock. Most places have a bit of a map, or at least drawings of their farm, and just thinking about for instance, their at-risk areas for things like flooding, earthquakes. It's a little bit harder to predict, obviously, but just thinking about where would be our risk paddocks, where would we think about moving stock to if we had time to do that, and that's a big if, because we don't want people putting themselves in danger once an event is happening. So it's early stock shifts if they're possible. So in terms of recovery after events, there's a few things that we've learned and a few things that we know also from the evidence. I guess acknowledgement that something big has happened, and that whatever we're feeling is a normal reaction to an abnormal event. So we don't need to get ourselves too worried that we're there. Just however we're feeling is okay to be how we're feeling. So acknowledging that we've been through something big, because it can feel a bit overwhelming. So we want to have a mindset really where we're saying, this is pretty big or tough. This could take a long time, but actually we're going to get through this. We are going to get through this, and it's a really important message to foster self-efficacy and just community support really. So that's a biggie. Then there's a number of other things that we know will help. If it's been a biggish event, we know it's going to take time, and we go into a flurry of activity at the start, and that's our kind of stress response kicking in. But it is going to potentially be more of a marathon than a sprint. Chunking it into first priorities and then parking some stuff. Again, so we don't get that sense of feeling overwhelmed, or also trying to do everything at once when that's just not really practical or doable. There might be some what I call psychological priorities in the mix. So it might be that if it's something right near the house, or it's a particular fence that is bugging the heck out of you every time you drive past it, it mightn't be the biggest practical priority, but actually if that's going to stop you just stirring you up every time you see it, then it might be one to put up the list and tick off. And speaking of ticking off, that's a really, really important thing to do, because the list can be ongoing, and it can feel like we're never going to get there. So it's really, really important to notice and to tick off and to kind of celebrate when you're achieving things. To give that sense of we're getting somewhere. We can't kind of maintain a really hectic pace on an ongoing basis. So thinking of performance over time, it's a bit like sport. We want to be pacing ourselves and we actually need some respite from doing recovery all of the time. So we need breaks in order to keep performing well, and also to keep performing and making good decisions. So it's really important we step out of that space, whether we're repairing a house, whether we're cleaning up silt, whether we're repairing fences. You need to take some time out for that pretty regularly in order to charge the batteries so you can keep going. And probably most important of all, connection. So connection is our biggest protective factor when we're faced with adversity. The sooner we can connect with the people that are meaningful in our lives at a personal level, but also communities kind of coming together so that we're not getting that sense of isolation, we're not doing it alone, is probably the most important thing. And so we want to keep maintaining those connections over time and not get bogged down in our own little corner, just trudging away, doing that ongoing recovery. And that's also on a daily basis. So we want to have routines really that switch us off at night, where we draw a line in the sand and we go, right, we're not doing more, we are going to have family time, or we are going to catch up with friends, or we're just going to blob out and have some kai and just have some downtime before we go again. So that's really, really key. There's a little bit of a motto, which is leisure and pleasure are the antidote to stress. So essentially our body's responding to this ongoing threat of recovery that we need to keep kind of moving through, but we need leisure and pleasure to instigate that calming response in our body and help it to have restorative energy to keep going through recovery. So that's another key aspect. So what we find is our communities are amazing following an event, and there's that sense of coming together to help, which is a great protective factor, but often there's a flurry around at the beginning, and sometimes that's not always practical for when people actually need the help. But I guess the message I'd give is accept those offers of help as you need them. So, and that may actually be saying to someone, I really, really appreciate your offer. Can I take a rain check? But I'd love to come back to you when that's going to really work. And do come back to them, because I know it's really hard where, rural people are really stoic and they're really independent, autonomous, and they're amazing like that. But equally, it's going to be a big job often. So we want to kind of accept that practical help when it's there. And the thing is, what goes around comes around. So, there'll be another opportunity in the future where those people who step up for you, you can step back up for them when you're in a position to do so. So accept those offers. And the other thing is, often we have expectations about how things should be done, how they should look, what a job should look like, and that's kind of our ideal. And when we don't have other things on, we can do it that way. But when it's in a recovery phase, often we have to lower our expectations to just make do, at least for a phase. We can come back for a higher standard later, but I think lowering our standards, and as one farmer says, you've just got to roll with it, really, and be practical about what you can do with the resources you've got at that time. We have to put up substandard fencing just to get it stock proof, and then we come back and we put in a better fence when time and finances allow. So that's okay, just lower with it. That's just being practical. So there's a range of resources, I guess, in that really that initial phase where we're kind of right in the thick of it, and then when we're in the recovery phase. So obviously in that first instance, we're wanting to kind of tune into our local councils and emergency management teams that are operating, because they are going to have that up-to-date information and be coordinating the whole community response. And then there'll be services like ourselves, Rural Support Trust, that join in that response. So we're obviously a key lead agency for rural communities on the ground that will be connecting and helping them to tap into other resources. So we often help navigate through to other services. Then there are people like the MPI on-farm recovery coordinators as well that are out and about. After the cyclones, they were able to help. Here in Wairarapa, they were able to help people tap into the MPI grants that were available and help with the applications and things like that, and let them know. They're also a source of information going back to central government about what's happening. Then we have our welfare managers that sit within our emergency management teams, and they look at the overall welfare of our community. So again, RST, we link back in with them, but also there's opportunities for communities themselves to be connecting with the welfare manager at the emergency management and council level. In terms of resources for people to kind of go to themselves, a really great resource is through FarmStrong. So FarmStrong's a social wellbeing program that has resources available for farmers and growers and their families. After the cyclones, they produced a resource, which I have here. It's called the Getting Through book. And so what's great about this book is it has stories from people who've been there, done that, and how they managed, what they did to kind of cope from a practical and from a wellbeing point of view as well. So great shared stories, but also tips and tricks from expert in the field. And also at the back there's a toolkit of kind of strategies that help people manage when they've been faced with a big event and they're in recovery. So obviously we're out and about, that's Rural Support Trust, but Federated Farmers is also another organisation that's out there to support farmers normally, but also post events. So they're another organisation to be able to kind of link with and are often helping around the country to coordinate the response and the recoveries.